Hey, Plato, before going into this debate, how are you feeling? This is a big
Yeah.
moment to kind of express your point of views. Like, how are you feeling?
Well, soft communism's the game. I think fun is the game as well. Also. But I'm looking to have a fun argument and win. What are your thoughts going into this debate between Plato and yourself?
It's interesting because I've known Plato for a while. We go way back. We both connect to Socrates in different ways. But let me tell you, love the guy, but his views on property is just something we fundamentally disagree about. And I'm looking to really just kind of show the people that Aristotle is the truth.
Okay, bud. Oh, I'm Plato. Nice to meet you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Aristotle.
And I'm Plato.
And, we're two of the greatest philosophers, thinkers, and just overall goats of our time. And, me and Plato go way back. How long do we go back, bro?
Centuries.
Centuries. Like
Centuries.
We've been having these debates for years.
We came out of the Stone Age together.
I don't know if we go that far back, but, we both came out of Greek. We both know Athena, both messing around with Athena a little bit. But, all right, back to some serious topics, though. We're going to talk about private property today because it's one of the fundamental differences Plato and I have. So we're going to read some note cards that we have, some questions that you all asked, and kind of just figure out and see what you, the audience, thinks is the best form of society in regards to property. So first, Nate, I have a question for you. Question for you to start. Do you want to ask me to start?
I'm Plato, bud.
Okay. All right, Plato, this guy.
What the
All right, what's the question, Plato? What's so funny?
You can't write.
Right, I'll read the question.
Oh my God.
Plato was saying my handwriting's not good enough. So let's start with Plato. Do you think owning property makes people morally better, or does it inherently corrupt its leaders?
Now, I'd like to define property and people here. I think you need to break it up. What is property? Like where? And I think it's individual ownership. Now, when I think of property, I might think of a house. I might think of land. But in reality, it's anything that you inherently own that is technically yours. And the individual in this situation, when I look at it, is both the citizen. I divide it: the citizen and the ruling class, the elite, the people who lead. And when I break that up, I think, one, citizens should not have individual property. This is because, well, for two reasons. One, it insinuates greed. When you own something, you no longer work for your neighbor, your significant other, the person that is beside you. It's just about yourself. It's so, I can't stand it. And I think it's really unacceptable. This goes double for the ruling class, who are especially important because they lead. They show what's right, what's wrong. They make decisions for the government. They have lives in their hands. When they are working out of their own interest, when they invest, when they trade, it needs to be for the common people, not themselves. Property dilutes that, which is why I think, in my opinion, property is a delicate subject that citizens can have, but should be wary of, and rulers, leaders, should absolutely have no say in.
So absolutely not. There's no exceptions ever.
There's no exceptions.
So I think this is where Plato and I fundamentally disagree, because I think property, ownership of things is essential for all human beings. I think it's intrinsic to the human experience. And I have a few key points that I'll touch on, I think, this entire time.
Please.
Progress, right? The ruling class is leading society. It's leading the state. We want the betterment of the state. So if we're leading the state, and if you don't own anything yourself, what incentive, what reason do you have to innovate? What reason do you have to lead your state into better, like create new things, if you don't own things yourself, if you don't understand that? The other thing I would say, we want our leaders to be benevolent. We want them to be caring, right? You would agree on that point?
I agree.
Right, so how can they be caring if they can't be generous? So we talk about liberality, the ability to be generous. You can't give something to people. You can't be a leader and give something to the rest of your state if you don't own it yourself. I can't be a leader and say, I'm going to give you air.
Whoa. I was agreeing with your points here. But you as a leader, you have the responsibility of the state. You, in that position, that you now possess the power the state does have. it's no longer giving what you have, it's giving what the state has to the people. You don't need to own anything to give. You can give to the people through the commonwealth of the state and not necessarily your own bank account.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't know what a bank account is. What's a bank account? But moving on, I understand what you're saying, but I disagree because I don't think it's just about, yes, technically the state could own everything and we could have communal living and everything could be shared. But I think it's important for the people society looks up to, the state looks up to, its leaders, its ruling class, to exemplify leadership through caring, through generosity, through helping people out. And I don't think that's possible for them to do without owning property. But I digress, and we can go on to the next question if that's all right with you.
Please,
That's
I'd
all right
love
with
to hear
you?
your takes, even if we may disagree.
It's all right. We have a respectful disagreement. Good discourse here.
Good discourse.
Okay. Should property be individually owned or shared among citizens? We already kind of touched on that. We can skip that one.
I think we did touch on that. We kind of trailed off in our previous question, but we did give our takes on that, so we can skip that.
We'll skip that one. It's kind of an L question there. Ugh. The next question the audience asked: is property necessary for a strong state, or can a communal system maintain order? Which do you think? So, do you think in your ideal state, Plato, I understand you think property is shared, but you think there's no way for a state to be
orderly
and good without?
How does a state maintain order, Socrates? A state maintains order when the rulers, the leaders, are in control. Now, I'm not talking about tyrannical rule here. I'm talking about they know what they're doing. They have access to wealth. They have access to power that they can use to better their society. When you own property, you are no longer worried about the people you rule. You are now focused on yourself. It is now an individual game. This position is about the power you hold over others and not the betterment you can do for those people. When you own something, when you are in possession, you inherently possess greed. Even if it is not in the forefront of your mind, that is innately what it comes down to. The greed and the need to possess more. Once you have something, you want more. And rulers who are looking out for the people, for their lower class, need to devote themselves wholly and completely to that lower class. They can no longer be looking out for themselves. And when they do, we have a problem on our hands.
Okay,
Socrates?
You just misnamed me? Do I look like Socrates to you? Socrates is chopped, bro. Do I look like I'm Aristotle?
Aristotle.
Oh, yeah, excuse you. Socrates has no idea what he's talking about. But few
Plato. Goddamn it, Plato.
A few points to what you just said. So here's why I think we have a fundamental disagreement. So here's what we agree on, right? We both want the betterment. We both want the best possible state, right? We both want that. Now you have this almost static view of what the state can be. And I would say I have more dynamic, because I think, like people, different states, different societies can function and thrive in different ways, right? Like, yes, you never want a degenerate society. You always want the true society. So, right, you want a monarchy, right? You don't want democracy. You want a constitutional republic. You want these true states, and that's what we're trying to get to. And I think the best way to do that is for, as you believe, I know you believe this, Plato, is for people within the state, all people, to feel emotionally fulfilled. Would you agree on that point? Would you agree on that? Emotional fulfillment.
I agree.
And I think the only way to reach emotional fulfillment for everyone is for the ruling class, the guardian class, to also have emotional fulfillment. And the only way for one to be emotionally fulfilled is for them to own property, because it gives them a sense of agency. It gives them a sense of belonging to something if they own it. And I think the other thing you touched on, inherently leading to greed, I think it's the exact opposite. And I have this phrase I coined called the golden mean. And this is what I think property gives us, which is we find the middle ground between excess and not enough. For example, owning property, it's like you just know, you learn to be moderate, you learn to be humble. And I think that's incredibly important for the betterment of the state. I don't know. Do you have any response to that?
I think it's a fine line you tread here.
Okay.
Aristotle, as you walk this line between emotional fulfillment and ruling, it's too thin. When you seek emotional fulfillment, you are immediately digressing from your purpose to rule, to lead. So when I or other philosopher kings rule and lead the people, I'm devoting myself fully and completely to them.
Ruling as an art, right? I remember reading that about you. Yeah.
I no longer am looking inward. And when you do look inward, it's like a black hole. You get sucked in.
Okay. I have a counterpoint to that. So if I'm a ruler and we're making, sorry, there's a new vehicle, a truck passing by us. If I'm a leader, I'm a legislator, and I'm creating a law about, let's say it's about land, about house, about how much land you can own, about a town, about making a mandate for everyone has to water their grass. Something right stupid. I cannot fully think long term. I can't understand long term what's best for the state in regards to legislating about a house, about property. If I don't own it myself, I can only fully understand the thoughts, concerns, and hopes and dreams of a homeowner if I am one myself, right? So of course, there is, as you say, an opportunity for greed. We know that. We know that there's an opportunity for greed, but I don't think there's any living at all if we don't give people the opportunity to be better, to think with their hearts and compassion. And when they're looking forward, when you have an agency and have a stake in what comes in the future, in my opinion, you are more likely to lead more thoughtfully and for the better of society.
I think you pose great points, Aristotle. And on that note, I'd like to move on to the next question.
Next question, okay. Final question, Mr. Plato. Okay. Can pleasure and personal satisfaction from property coexist with the public good, or do they inevitably create conflict? We already kind of touched on this, but do you want to just
We
wrap
touched
it
on
up?
this, but I'd like to give my last point
Okay.
here. Property gives power.
Yeah, it does.
No matter how you look at it, property gives power. The people in charge, the ruling class, the kings, they have power. Now, this power doesn't come from money, doesn't come from wealth. It comes from knowledge and virtue. Their fulfillment, their emotional fulfillment, as you touched on earlier, is no longer about what they own. It's about what they know. And I think as a society, neglecting monetary value, neglecting property in pursuit of emotional and knowledgeable fulfillment gives both the ruling class a better ability to rule and the lower class, the citizens, a better ability to follow. They are now working for the common goal. They are both working towards the same things at the same pace, and there's no longer a divide.
Here's where I disagree with you. Right. I'm a ruler. Right? Say I'm a ruler. And I think we have fundamental disagreement about this. If I can't actually properly lead unless like we talk about, is the hand part of the body? If it's just the hand, no, I don't think, and as you said, I don't think the citizen is part of the society unless they're being ruled properly, unless they're being loved and cared for by their rulers. And I don't think that's possible without the pleasure that property can bring to an individual.
And I think that right there is our fundamental disagreement.
Fundamental disagreement. I don't know if we're going to get past that, Plato.
I think humans as a person are meant to work together, are meant to work in a communal state, and that they do not need individual fulfillment to thrive. But you clearly think the opposite.
But don't you just think that, like, yes, things may go south sometimes if people own property. But isn't it worth it to try? Like, isn't this what life is about, to try and see and find fulfillment and pleasure? And maybe it doesn't work sometimes, but shouldn't we try? You don't think so? You don't think it's worth it?
I think What is worth it is our neighbor, is our companion, is the people we live with, work with, who are our lives. Property takes it. Property is here in the grand scheme of things, and if that dilutes our purpose, our power,
Okay.
our relationships, there's no need for it in a society.
Okay. Plato,
So, Aristotle,
thank you for your time, my friend.
you too.
Once
It's
again,
been a pleasure.
thank you guys for watching. And next up we have some different things. We're going to talk about slavery in our next episode. But, it's going to be a little bit of a hot topic. But stay tuned for that. All right. God bless. Bye bye. Plato, that was definitely a fascinating and intense interview. How do you feel after?
I think I won. I know this wasn't a fight, it wasn't a battle, but I came in it with that mentality, as I always do. I'm a warrior, Warriors want to win.
Yeah.
And I think in this argument, I got the upper hand. I think he has something wrong up here. We disagree on some fundamental psychology, but he's a great person to argue with. It's been a pleasure. Aristotle, how do you feel coming out of this debate?
I think to an extent, it wasn't my best performance. It wasn't my best performance at all. And I think one of the big problems with it is that I find Plato such a hard person to argue with because everything that I think, it's about being dynamic. It's about being fluid. It's about working with the grain, not against it, right? And Plato is very static in his beliefs. And, he's stubborn. He's an old head. He's locked in his ways. And, if the people can't see that that's the wrong way to live, then I don't know what to tell them. But, he's a great friend and love him to death.
Amen, man.
Amen.